Hello and welcome to the Art of Costume podcast. I am your host, Spencer Williams, and thank you so much for joining me for another special bonus episode. Hey costume nerds! So, as you have probably figured out by now, today we are not releasing our highly anticipated True Blood episode because truthfully, we just need a bit more time to edit the episode because there's just so much to go over, so much crazy kooky stuff. But I'm excited to say they will be released this Friday on Halloween, which is kind of the perfect send-off to our hot vampire month. And I promise it will be worth the wait because Elizabeth and I were joined by True Blood costume designer Audrey Fisher. And it was such a fun conversation. You are all going to love it. It will be well worth the wait. But instead, today we are having a very fun episode. I'll never leave you high and dry, as we'll be diving into a brand new film hitting theaters this week, called Bugonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, the same Yorgos that directed Poor Things, a fan favorite of the Art of Costume podcast. And we are so excited to be working with Focus Features and bringing to you a little teaser of this film. So, of course, today we are joined by costume designer Jennifer Johnson to talk all about some of these characters and their costumes you will see in this film. Don't worry, we don't get into any spoilers though I'll admit I so desperately want to because I promise you there's some great stuff in here that I'm dying to talk about. But you have to go see the film and maybe we'll talk about some of those costumes later on this year. So after a quick break, we will be joined by Jennifer Johnson to talk about working with Emma Stone, her fierce CEO attire, swarms of bees, and her collaboration with director Yorgos Lanthimos right after this break.
Hi, I'm Dan, who does all the magic behind the scenes. I wanted to say thank you, and if you want to support the show even farther, go to tpublic.com/user/theartofcostume, where you can buy a couple variations of our logo on t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. Also, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and if you're an audio listener, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Now, back to the show.
I am so excited to be here once again with my friend, costume designer Jennifer Johnson. Hey, Jennifer, it's been a while.
Hi, nice to see you again.
So good to see you. I just love talking with you about your films and your work, and I cannot be more excited to talk about Bugonia because I am truly obsessed with this film. It is such a good one.
And what a great podcast you have and caring about costume design and inviting us to join in on your conversation. It's really lovely. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. Well, so I believe this is your second film with director Yorgos Lanthimos, correct?
Yes, I did Kinds of Kindness. I also did a short film with Yorgos called Mimic that Matt Dillon is in.
Which I love Kinds of Kindness. But so obviously something between the two of you really work. So tell me a little bit about this collaboration and why it just was kind of kinship that you guys would work on Bugonia as well after the success of Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah, I think Yorgos is really great at finding like-minded group of people that he can rely on and not have to micromanage. He loves to put together people that are nice and who are brave and not afraid to make fun of themselves or make a fool of themselves. He really enjoys like taking risks, and he likes that kind of personality that's collaborative and kind and has a sense of humor. So Robbie Ryan, the cinematographer, and James Price and Torsten Whitty, we all had known each other prior, and just a really great group of people.
Yeah, it was good to get you all in the same room. But then you also have some returning casts as well. So I'm very excited to talk about some of these characters. I'm very excited to start with Emma Stone's character, Michelle, who is a pharmaceutical CEO. She has a closet full of like some good McQueen suits, some Louis Vuitton shoes, the Saint Laurent bag. She looks great, but there is something to me that's a little bit eerie about her also though, because it feels like Michelle is also putting on a costume as much as you are putting a costume on her. I mean, there's this moment that I was laughing as a costume person where she throws on this big incredible coat and she wears it from the building to the car and then takes it off immediately. And I just thought, I was like, that's really interesting. Very odd of this character. So tell me about working with Michelle.
That's a really astute observation. Usually, as a costume designer, I like to approach characters that, the costume's not wearing them. But I think in the case of Michelle, it is because
Yeah.
she is playing a character. And that which is later revealed. So it was very clear to me that she needed to wear the same thing, that she has one set of clothes in multiples, and that perhaps she gave a list to her assistant, like, please make me look like a CEO. And what are those things? And so, the overcoat, the power overcoat, which is her kind of protective armor, and the McQueen jacket, this sort of list of like very iconic business shapes that also read a little scary, a bit vampirish.
Yeah.
um, and so everything actually in her costume is custom except for the McQueen jacket and the Louboutin shoes and the Saint Laurent bag and the Celine sunglasses and the Cartier tank watch.
It's spooky. It is spooky. It is a little vampirish, but I mean at the same time you're like, well, she does look good though. So clearly the assistant
Yeah.
killed it.
Yeah. 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 And I think it was just keeping her color palette very restrictive. But with the overcoat, with that trench, it's tying in that, burgundy's her is the color of blood.
Right. And, working with Emma Stone as an actress on this film, she doesn't have too many costumes. So you really kind of have to, I'm guessing you must have had to work with her to really identify how this character was going to evolve throughout Bugonia.
Yeah. And I had been brought on by Yorgos kind of unofficially in maybe 8 months before we started production. And which is great having a shorthand with him and knowing him, being friends with him outside of work, we were able to just start brainstorming ideas on what she might be, what Teddy might be.
Let's talk about Jesse Plemons' character, Teddy, who actually to me is terrifying. I think that he's such a brilliant actor, but was giving me Silence of the Lambs vibes a little bit. He's a bit stuck in time, I have to say, which I love. But then my favorite part about his costume is the subtle use of metallics and silvers. To me, it feels like a little bit like a nod to the classic alien lore of the aluminum hat. Was I catching on to something here?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for noticing all these things. Well, so Teddy is a conspiracy theorist, although I've seen the movie twice now, and it's interesting how similar him and Michelle are actually. Like they're such an interesting duality of characters. But yes, the silver is really important to Teddy because that's his electromagnetic frequency EMF protective gear. And he would be somebody very worried about not only alien radiation, but also all the radiation that he perceives himself to be surrounded by, like 5G and different observational rays that are emanating through his daily life. And so he can't EMF clothing is available. There's a company, for instance, in Holland where you can buy radiation boiler suits that are $3,000 and they're made out of silver. And Teddy doesn't quite have that budget. So it was trying to dig into things that he could find or make, but without falling into the silliness or tropes of like tinfoil on the head, like how to make that feel more sincere and genuine. And so the silver jacket was something really, I think, important, kind of gives him like a slight, I don't want to say comic book, but gives him sort of like a bit of a heroic, he has this
Yeah.
like cape that he goes out and saves the world.
Right.
And then when the kidnapping suits, then that's like more leaning into their awareness of immediate radiation. So, I got a spool of plumber's tape and applied that to their little jumpsuits. And the balaclava is actually like a real EMF piece, or so they say, that I
Right.
found on the weird web of Amazon. But that's
Yeah.
supposedly something that protects your brain from for real.
Yeah. No, I love it because I mean, he at the end of the day, Teddy is a smart guy though, so it's not like he's not gonna be walking around with the aluminum hat, because he's doing his homework as
And
much
he's
as
a
you want to say about him.
professional. He's a professional.
Yeah, yeah. But we also do see Teddy in his everyday life, though. I mean, you could kind of really tell that before this film took place, that he's lived an entire life up to this moment. See him working. There's a very kind of real, authentic feel to that. Kind of mirrors how I view people working hard today.
Yeah, it was really important that, he have authenticity, and that the movie's humorous, but I find in every project I work on, I don't want to make fun of any of my characters. And like you said, I think Michelle's the only one wearing the costume intentionally, right?
Yeah,
But for Teddy and Dawn, that they should feel like that the movie takes place in Georgia, and that it's rural, and they live on a big piece of land, and he's an apiarist. He takes care of bees. And to my surprise, I had a neighbor who's a costume assistant
oh.
and that lives across the street, and she had a swarm of bees in her wall, and I was prepping the movie in the very early stages, and I could see some bee action going on across the street, and I called her, and she put me in touch with the apiarist, and I became friends with him, and Jesse became friends with him, and I bought all of his bee suits
Whoa.
because there is a level of patina on the bee suit itself that is impossible to really experience in a photograph. So they smoke the bees, they which imbues this amazing, beautiful charcoal patina that goes through the layers of mesh of the costume, or it's not a costume, of the bee suit, and honey, and pollen, and all this like gunky stuff. And so these guys are quite dirty, actually.
Yeah.
So that was my first costume that I received that really inspired me to lean into Teddy's grubbiness.
Yeah.
And then that helped informed how grubby the set became.
Wow, that's fascinating. What are the chances of having a costume assistant friend who
Yeah.
happen to have a swarm of bees? That is
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah.
But that kind of leads into something I want to ask you about too. I mean, it's the bee uniform is very, like you said, grubby. It feels very real. But then there's also just a lot of dirt and gore and all sorts of things that end up happening in this house without getting into it. So tell me a little bit about the aging and dying process and how integral it was to Bugonia.
It's for me, aging, dying, patina, all of that is so important that the costume not feel plastic and straight from the shelf, straight from the package. We had a lot of multiples, a lot of stunts, a lot of violence in the movie. So it was really important that the costumes that we produced, that we made, in-house, or that we purchased, feel really authentic. And Teddy, being a conspiracy theorist, he's extremely intelligent, and he's not thinking about bathing that day. Or now, not only is his work that does on the farm dirty, but his hunting of people is a little dirty too,
Yeah.
of certain types of people. And so I think, and also it's a very sad, Teddy's very sad, you really feel for him. You sense that, yeah, there's a sadness to him. And I thought it was important to show that sort of depression in his clothing.
Yeah, I feel like the costumes really kind of lend to that too. It helps the audience kind of take a second and be like, I don't know, maybe he is onto something here. Like he really believes
Mhm.
this, but I could
Yeah.
tell that,
Yeah.
he is very sad, and which is why he's in the pursuit of finding these answers, and the costumes really
Mhm.
lend to that, along with everything else, who worked on.
And we had a really amazing breakdown art textile artist in we made the movie in London, believe it or not.
Whoa.
And Rafaela Buck, who did such a good job, and she had a lot of things to do.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Um, but another thing I love about this film is how costumes of characters we really don't get to see in a film play such a big role as well in the story of Bugonia. Teddy and Dawn sport some pretty stylish suits when they go down to speak with Michelle, and the assumption that she is potentially an alien emperor. And also, Michelle's given some clothes at some point that aren't exactly her typical McQueen ensemble. So, tell me about working with these clothes that, represented characters that we don't really get to see, some of them at all.
Yeah, well, the suiting was really important. That's Teddy's attempt to be like official and taken seriously, and he kind of reverses roles with Michelle. So she comes in with her suit, and then she loses part of her suit in the basement, and her overcoat becomes kind of like I sort of loved how she's a bit like Nosferatu with the white makeup, you know, and her collar. But she's sort of, it's this tennis match between the two of like who's gaining power. And Teddy comes down in his father's suit and he puts Dawn in his father's suit. We never meet the father, but we assume that perhaps because the house at one time was nice, we assume that he had a job and probably worked in business, or maybe he was a car salesman.
Yeah.
And those kind of suits are hard to, they used to be sort of easier to shop for those suits, but now when you need multiples, you really need to produce them. I found vintage fabric with a wonderful suit maker in London, um, Adrian at Academy, who knew like how to make a really frumpy suit. So, I told him to break down the shoulder pads and really make it feel deflated and not like eager to do business.
Yeah.
But Teddy puts on the best show he can of being an adult.
Hmm.
But it was important that everyone have that contrast. So Michelle have the contrast between her being so put together and so immaculate to then like being losing footing in her power once Teddy takes over and once the interrogation begins. And then completely being stripped of that when she's put in his mother's dress. And so there's sort of like interesting themes of just with the clothing of with the costume of the back and forth volleying that they're doing, kind of who has the ball in their court,
Yeah.
which is really the which is a great scene in the dinner at the table.
It's one of my favorites. It's very powerful, and just there's a lot of things happening without getting into it too deeply,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
a good one.
yeah.
Well, Jennifer, this has been, I'm so glad I got to talk to you. I've been dying to talk to you ever since I saw this film a couple weeks ago. But by the time this episode comes out, Begonia will be out in the world in Los Angeles and anywhere you can see it in theaters. What are you excited about the audience to see? I mean, people are already rushing to the theaters with these interesting, fun screenings. So I really feel like
Yeah.
this film's it's gonna take over here.
I'm excited for people to see a real big movie with a huge score and shot on VistaVision, and it's a beautifully made movie by Yorgos Lanthimos. It's an interesting, wonderful script, but also the VistaVision allows you to really luxuriate in the costumes. You can see all the detail really clearly. Please go see this on the big screen, and I can't wait for you to see the end of the movie.
Yeah, yes. I was gonna say we
That
can't
was a
talk
lot.
about today, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you back in a couple months when we
Cool.
could talk about it because
Thank
I have
you.
a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's some real fun facts and
Yeah.
fun little statistics on that one. So
Well, costume designer Jennifer Johnson, thank you so much for talking with me. I can't wait for everyone to see Begonia, and congratulations to you and the crew that made this happen because it
so
really
lovely
worked
chatting.
well.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, bye.